You're listening to Creating a Universe, a Love Anarchy podcast hosted by William J. Rogers. On this show, we follow the journey of creatives, artists, and entrepreneurs who are making a name for themselves in the ever-evolving landscape of today's industry. Featuring an insight into both Love Anarchy and the LovAnaverse Music Universe, as well as the individual projects and stories of each of our guests, from the music industry and beyond. So whether you're a budding creative or simply interested in what goes on behind the scenes, this is the podcast for you. Hello and welcome to Creating Universe. I'm your host, William J. Rogers, and today I am here with singer, songwriter, and the alter ego of Yarimā, Mrs. Maria Rogers. How's it going, Maria?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, I'm very, very excited to be here today because it's definitely been one of my things that I really wanted to do.
Wonderful.
And never got around to actually making it, but yeah.
It's been a long time coming. I mean, we were kind of jesting about this, like it probably would have been episode 2 or 3 or something, but you know, it's been slightly impractical. So it's taken us a bit of time to get there, but I'm so happy that we're finally doing it.
Yes, likewise.
Cool. All right. Well, you know how it goes. You listen to a good few of these episodes. So would you be able to start just by giving a bit of an overview as to who you are and the various things that you do?
Yes, certainly. Well, as you said, my name is Maria Rogers. And I suppose people who are listening to it, knowing that you are William Rogers, would probably make a correct assumption that we're married. And I am in-house wife, but I am actually a musician and singer-songwriter. And so, as you said, alter ego of Yarimā. This is one of my current projects that's been ongoing. But yeah, otherwise I'm also working on my other singer-songwriter stuff that's more pop projects under my own name. And as with, I suppose, a lot of creatives and other people who has been on your podcast already, there's always more and more ideas coming in for new projects, but obviously not all of them get to live to see the day. But yeah, sure. We're gonna talk about it a bit later on in the episode.
For sure, yeah. We'll get to everything. I mean, I feel like as I was trying to come up with the title, you know, singer, songwriter, etc., I was thinking, what do I actually put here? Because you do so many things. Like you're really just like a creative person, right?
Well, you do what you got to do, really. I definitely would have never thought that I'd be able to do digital design and graphic design and web design. Yeah. But, you know, there's all the skills that you gain along the way when you're a self-made musician and you're trying to, as they say, make it in the industry. So you have to multitask. That's, I think, essential, especially for the current climate.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we've certainly learned that. And that's kind of been like what a lot of the trajectory is about, I suppose, diversifying of all sorts of skills. But it is cool how, like, if you're a creative person, learning how to kind of utilize that in all sorts of different ways. You know, it is like, it can be fulfilling, you know, to find these different outlets. Cool.
Yeah, and, you know, I've always been into just trying things for fun. And I think that's essential to maintain this approach because, as well, obviously, because we're sharing lives. And it helps me a lot to see you working and the ideas that you have and, you know, all the books that you listen to and I listen to and we share it together. And that's a very big part of the relationship. And it's this concept of being open as a child to things. So when you offer a child something, they're curious at first and they want to make a judgment for themselves whether it's interesting for them or not. And if they pick something up and it's of interest, then they will play with it. And I do think that play is so essential, especially for an artist and for any creative person. And the thing is that when I say that, it's probably better to define that. I mean, people from creative fields, so artists and musicians and actors and things like that. But I do believe that every work, every job has the place for creativity in it. And I do feel like people who succeed most in their careers, whatever the career is, are the ones that have this approach and are able to harness this, curiosity and almost limitless thirst for learning more and playing more with what they have. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I think that that's a wonderful topic, to discuss.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, yeah, sorry.
No, please.
I just do feel like when, well, that actually ties in more into my story, but what I wanted to say is when you're young and you come to realization that you really enjoy being a creative in whatever direction you want to take it, I feel like you feel really, really powerful and driven, and it gives you this, at least very first push of energy to be passionate and start, networking and, doing all this like unpaid gigs very, very often at first when you start out. And then, but what then keeps it fueling is dedication. And I think it's a balance between this play aspect and adult aspect that needs to come in balance. Because if you're just a child, then you're just going to create infinite amount of projects, but none of them are going to be successful because, again, you're just going to play with it for like 30 seconds. And So yeah, that's another topic, the balance.
I think that's really cool. Yeah, it is important to say that as well, because I think that, it's really great to focus on the playfulness, the childlike aspect. That's probably something that people need to be reminded of more, I think. But yeah, it's definitely about balance. I think we've definitely learned that a lot, and I know that I've swung on this pendulum. You and I have both always been like this. Like we're full of ideas, right? Creative people. We want to create loads of different projects, loads of different styles. We get excited. I definitely have been guilty of swinging too far the other way and taking things too seriously and being like, we have to make a business of this. And we do, ultimately, and that's good. But like, I've definitely just, had to learn the hard way about not pushing that too hard, because if you lose that childlike aspect, it's all good experience. And I'm sure anybody listening can tell that you have a very positive influence and impact on that whole thing. And have really been vital to everything that I've done. We've done pretty much, everything together. For an extent. So much of it is about this mindset and where you're at in general, in life. Like, so much comes from there.
Yeah, and I definitely feel very lucky to be able to share this with you, because I find it's quite rare, but once you establish a connection like that with someone, it could be, for others, it could be a friend, a sibling, maybe another, creative as well. And you just come to realize how vital it is to your own, mental health and for your well-being, because sometimes you can get carried away so much that it's really hard to maintain objectivity.
Oh, absolutely.
And when you have someone else to bounce it off and actually be like, it's all right, like, I'm not crazy, am I right? Like this is actually all right, this idea. Definitely, and have this affirmation with another person. It actually helps so much to find this stability. And I do think that, and I really feel for creatives who struggle with it and who didn't find their tribe yet. And I mean, the whole point of Love Anarchy is to help you find the tribe of people who are also passionate about music, or other forms of art, and really want to find like-minded people, because that's just so essential. It just can never be underestimated. And and I completely stand by and believe in everything we do. And I do also feel like that's another secret to living a fulfilling life, because it's, again, it's the phrase that's been printed on many canvases that you can buy probably in like a Poundland or something, that like your vibe finds your tribe and like things like that. But it's really true.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so cool. It's so cool. Yeah. So he we can explore this more for sure. I think that what I'd like to do is give people a little bit more of a background on yourself. Like, as people can tell, you are a very creative person. You've done all sorts of things. You get involved in all sorts of things. You're very heavily involved in Love Anarchy and all of this stuff. But for you, your trajectory, your main focus has always been somewhat based around music, right? And I kind of wanted to take it back to like when you first got into music, and explore what your trajectory has been individually as a musician and an artist that way.
Yeah, sure, I'd love to. Well, I actually have a classical music background, so I started studying piano when I was 6, and obviously before that I was kind of just like playing around, and how usually children are just singing and etc., which is, again, was a really nice thing to witness now that we became parents. How naturally that actually comes to you as a human, and it really makes me think that when is the point where we actually stop doing it? That's a whole other story. But anyway, so I was always kind of lucky, I think, with the people I met along the way. And so I was in the kindergarten when our music teacher noticed that I actually can, hear pitch pretty good, and I can sing, and they would always involve me in one of the main roles in little kiddies' plays and things like that. And then she talked to my mother and said that actually I would suggest that you help her go to music school, like a proper music school. And so basically connection through connection through connection. And I got a place in a quite established music school where it's not just, where you come a few times a week. It was very intense. It was pretty much every day we had some music lessons and, choirs and harmony and stuff like that. So for a long time, my trajectory was actually to go to conservatory after I finish school and just have a classic career as a musician. And I quite liked it when I was a child, because I was, traveling to some music competitions and taking part in festivals. I had an amazing piano teacher, and she was an, absolute, I don't know, a professional of the level that I can't even describe in her, in the way what she was doing. And so she really helped me, I think, shine in that way and find joy in playing music. And but then I became a teenager and discovered rock music.
Yeah.
And
rebel mode,
like
activate.
metal. But I was always like I did like pop punk, pop rock, alternative rock. So it was like that area.
It's early 2000s, isn't it? So,
yeah. So everything that was in there, and mind you, we didn't have separate internet back then. So I was mostly just listening to music channels and watching like VH1 or MTV. That was my main source of discovering music. And I think I was so thirsty that I was ready to give anything a go that had guitars and drums in it, literally.
Nice.
I just like listen to anything, and then I will decide if I liked it or not. And so with that alternative, but I don't know, love for music, I clearly didn't fit in anymore in the classical music world, I'd say, because I started to like color my nails black and colored my hair black, and was wearing all of the spiky stuff and a lot of metallic things and things like that. So I realized that I actually don't want to go to conservatory, and it's not the path for me. And I think I'll be feeling like I'm suffocating if that's just limited to the classical music. So I wasn't prepared to give that part of myself up that was interested in rock music in order to have a career that I wasn't even sure I want to have, because I think I was obviously quite starry-eyed at that point. And that was actually when I started learning how to play electric guitar. That was kind of like teaching myself some chords and here and there, and but because everything else was quite intense, my main focus was still piano. But nonetheless, I actually had a few gigs where I was playing guitar. Well, it was a rhythm guitar. So that was around the time when I started to gig. I was maybe 16, and so I was writing my own songs and found guys who were musicians that from the instruments that were missing that I couldn't play, and I was so excited. It was just the most exciting thing in the world to find this whole other. It was almost like traveling to another dimension where all these people were living who were listening to the same music and playing all of these cool instruments to the level that I wasn't hoping to play back then. And that they were willing to play my songs and go to perform them on stage. That was just the best thing ever. And that got me really inspired. So then I went to uni. It was also a music major program, but it was a lot more flexible. So it contained a lot of different directions, I think. So we had like music criticism there. You could study this, you could study that. So it didn't have anything in particular, as opposed to, it just provided a very big overview of what direction can you take as a musician already. Yeah. But then during that time, I was always involved in various music projects. So it was indie pop rock later after that, and then dream pop. That was shoegaze. There was jumping from one project to another, because the thing is that as I was discovering different genres of music, I fell in love with each one of them. Yeah. And obviously it made me think that, I really want to make a project now with this genre. And then I just like made 2-3 songs and like, okay, well, I'm satisfied what now. Let's do the next one.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then I moved to Germany for around 5 years and was just continuing to write music as a acoustic pop, pretty much. And I also had a very briefly experience of working as a booking agent for other bands, and I've met a lot of really cool people through that. But again, that just gave me a realization that even though I was pretty good at it, I think, and all the networking and being multilingual certainly helped. And I still realize that I don't want to be on the other side of the stage, if you can say so. That I really have enough to that I'd like to express through music and through lyrics, and that I've got a lot to give. You can say. And then after Germany, I moved to UK, which was a very bold move because I already had quite a few friends there, and life was settled. And I just realized that there is sometimes you have these moments in life where you feel such a strong pull to do something, and it almost becomes your fixation that you just can't get it out of your head. And that was how it was for me with moving to the UK. I mean, I was always quite fascinated with the UK, and started learning English quite early on. For those of you who are listening, I'm actually Russian as a background, and then lived in Germany, and now have lived in UK for a bit over 5 years. So it definitely was something that was such a, it was almost unbelievable that I can do it now, because it was always the faraway land that's, all the cool stuff is happening there, but like, who am I? Just a mortal girl who's, grew up in Russia in '90s.
Yeah.
To dream of, going to the UK. But, that's how it is. Once you find that desire that's almost like burning you from within, you just find the way to do that. And so I did what I had to do. I worked many, many low-paid jobs just to stay in London, because the living is ridiculously expensive, and it just keeps on getting higher and higher. But it was all worth it. I just completely, I loved every day. I was waking up. I had to like start my shift, I don't know, at 7 a.m. or whatever, at a coffee shop. And I was like, amazing day, because I'm in London, I'm in UK, I live the dream. So it's all worth it. And so that was this vibration. And then pretty much soon after we met. And you had guys from Leontes. And if anyone's been listening to that episode, which I also recommend actually, it was just at the gig that they had. And we met through other friend of mine. And I just was invited to that gig randomly. And I randomly came because it was my day off, because otherwise I wouldn't have, because I was working in the retail at that time, and it was very strict with the shifts that you had to do. So luckily the stars aligned, and we met. And then since then everything changed, because I've never met anyone like you. And I'm not just saying that because I'm your wife. I think it's quite objective. And living in 3 different countries, I think I've met quite a few people. So I felt instant connection with you and your ideas, and it was just very inspiring. And I think I was at the point that time in my life where it was very difficult for me mentally, because the job was becoming very demanding. And obviously this rose-tinted lenses that I had about living in UK were starting to fade, because I realized that I actually didn't have enough time to pursue music, being one of the main reasons why I decided to move to UK, because it has such a grand tradition of musicians and music culture. And I was getting very disappointed, I think, with myself first, because I think I was already 28 at the time. So it almost was heading towards this, like, I don't know, 30 years crisis, if you believe in something like that, where you basically need to count what you managed to achieve in your life so far and what's your trajectory after that. So it kind of hit me, that realization that that's it. Like you need to, it's either make or break kind of thing. You need to focus on what's important to you, and having some random job where you are completely replaceable is not something I wanted. I wanted really to be able to make a difference with what I'm doing, and just have a fulfilling life, I think, as an artist. And luckily that's what I came to do now, and we've been living this artistic lifestyle for the last years, because for better or for worse, I know 2020 brought some really big difficulties to some people, and a lot of people have struggled, and I really feel them. But for us, 2020 was an amazing turnaround. If anything, is when we actually started to developing everything and going with the direction that we're continuing right now. So I'm just very excited to see where we're going.
So that's so wonderful. It's so great to hear you talk about it all. It's such a wonderful story, and you've come such a long way. Like you mentioned about like growing up in Russia in the 90s, and like for anybody that doesn't know, there was a lot of hardship after the collapse of the Soviet Union and things like that. So you've really come so far in yourself and been so determined the whole time, and so like devoted to your beliefs and your creativity, and it's just so wonderful. And the fact that we share so much, I suppose, in common with these ideas about creativity and it was just all very it all just seemed very natural. I remember that when we met, it almost felt like I already knew you. You know what I mean? As you say, we instantly felt like friends. We were hanging out at a gig. We had some mutual friends, as you said, but like it just felt kind of like straight away. It was so wonderful. I'm very happy about that. Somewhat biased for an episode, but
gotta be done.
very awesome, very special, and it's so cool. The trajectory that you had up until that point. From that point, it was certainly quite a ride. I mean, it's not been without challenges, like you said about us living this artistic life. It's wonderful. Absolutely. Like we're living the dream in a way, like as you've put it. But like, it's definitely not as simple as that. Right?
No,
like,
of course not.
We've
Nothing is.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. So, I mean, go on.
No, just wanted to mention that I'm going to talk about the creation of Yarimā in a bit as well.
Oh, we'll get to that. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, because I wanted to tie it in with the whole story.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's it. I think that you kind of took it to a point that was quite a nice takeoff, which is your story up until there. So just to kind of to connect those, I think that we met at that time.
Yeah.
And we were both in a similar position. We were living in London. Anybody that doesn't know about London, I mean, you had to work all the time at some low grade job just to try and get by on ridiculously expensive rent and all of that.
Yeah.
Definitely helped when we got together and we got a place together because then we could split it. Somewhat brings it down, but it was still crazy, and still both of us had to just spend almost all our time working. Just jobs that, as you say, like anybody could do them really. Like as artists, creators, it's no disrespect to anybody that does that, but for us, it feels kind of soul crushing,
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And so it was so good that we had each other. That definitely inspired us to believe in the fact that we can do something better. But we managed that for a while. We moved in together in 2018, and as you said, 2020 things really started to kick off. And I think that's because we had this feeling, right, that we needed to make a shift. And then when stuff started to get weird, like this notion of COVID and all of that and lockdowns and stuff, I just remember thinking, we can't get stuck here, in our London apartment or whatever. Like we have to make a jump. And so it was a pretty big move. Like we really kind of jumped off the deep end and we're like, let's just ditch everything, go all in, and we're going to go full in on music, and we're going to make a business that is going to, adhere to our values and help other people as well and succeed. And we're going to move country and do whatever. And so it's been quite a wild ride. So, I mean, what would be your, telling of the trajectory from this point?
Well, as you say, it actually made me finally realize. So I have this friend whom I've been in a band with when I first founded my own band when I was like 16. He's a guitar player, and so each time, because we kept in contact up until now, and I support him, and he's always supporting my things that I do. And then I remember after moving to London, we had a call, like literally in the first few days. I was renting a bed in a hostel because I really needed to find some work, and I didn't have any place to live. And so I called him and I was like, yeah, I just decided to just take a jump into the unknown. And he was like, I think your whole life is pretty much jump into the unknown.
Yeah.
Like, keep on jumping.
Yeah. Sounds about right. You always end up better off.
Yeah.
So.
And I do feel like that's an inevitable part of being an artist. You just have to do it. Obviously, hopefully not to the extent that's going to be too extreme or dangerous for you. But there is always this pushing through your comfort zone, and the comfort zone keeps on getting like the bigger and bigger as you push it more and more. And so it's like up in the ante all the time. But I do feel like that's an important part to remember, because some days you might feel like, oh, I just want, normal life, and I want to be comfortable with where I am, which is absolutely normal to desire that. But then you need to remember, like, why are you here and why are you doing what you're doing? Surely it's not for comfort. There's always need to be a bigger aim, and this is reminding yourself of why you're here and doing this is so essential. And I think so trajectory from 2020 for us have been a constant reminder to ourselves that there is a bigger picture there is a goal. And mind you, I feel like it is, it's quite challenging when both of us are, quite emotional and creative, and we'll have our own, issues as anyone else. And it's like the communication is so essential with this. And I can definitely say that it's been a wonderful spiritual growth as well as personal growth since then, and since we started this journey. And obviously we had lots of ideas that we started off with, and now we're not where we began. And I also think that that's okay. Like, I learned to respect the process and to let go of things that I had expectations for. I actually remember now always, if I find myself having expectations about something, I literally saw this very short reel from some writer who won Eurovision. Well, he didn't make you second year last year. Yeah. But anyway, that he said that he always believed that expectation is a limitation. And I completely agree with this, because you never know what's in store for you. And you shouldn't limit yourself by thinking that, oh, you want things to be this certain way. And, you by doing so, you just completely cover yourself of all other possibilities. And obviously, it's much easier to think that you're in control of things, but actually you can control a pretty little part.
Very little.
And the rest you just kind of need to let go. And if it's gonna end up as how you think it would, then great, because then it means that you've managed to be so objective with everything that you do that it was exactly like that. But I find more often than not things are turning out very differently.
Yeah.
And I think that was definitely the lesson we've learned, you could say, the hard way. By setting things and then changing things, and then you have to tweaking them, and that takes it. And then you just like, oh, I'm just going to scrap it all now. So because I'm not happy, it's not working anymore, and maybe that's not what even I'm supposed to do at all. So yeah, and so to come back to Yarimā that I wanted to talk about, that was actually quite an interesting project for me, because it's almost like a slow burner now.
Yeah.
And I never had such a project, because I'd always want to have very clean cuts. So like, oh, I finished with that project, I'm moving on to the next one. I'm setting everything up for that new project. And because like I have no energy to keep in mind all the rest that I was doing, and have no energy to give it to. And with the Yarimā, it's very different, because again, it's an alter ego, so it's set in LovAnaverse, and which means that this character is just there. So whether I'm releasing music or not releasing music, it's just the character that's there.
Yarimā's doing her thing, yeah.
yeah, because it's part of a bigger context. And I think that what's very helpful is that this is not the central story. This is just part of many, many, many stories that can live and coexist in LovAnaverse. And I think that's the beauty of the project, because anyone can come in and create this character, and they don't have to manage it 24/7 and then feel, that they've given it everything and why it's not working. And you can just have fun with it.
Yeah.
And you can even, pick any topic that you want and make your character in a certain way, make music in a certain way, and it's just fun. And I think that's what's really important. Again, coming back to the message from the beginning of the podcast, is just enjoyment of being creative, and that you don't have to take it so seriously, really, because again, you can just create, and if it gets, I don't know, 40,000 streams or what, then great.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to. So my approach with Yarimā was, obviously it was quite different, but I really enjoy this project, and I'm really happy to have it on a slow burner whilst I do other things I'm occupied with, being a mother, and having other things that I'm interested in too, and obviously just maintaining life and household as well, which is just part of normal living.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I can come back to it when I feel the desire to, and that'd be great. So I was always fascinated with Far East and the culture, and that's why I thought that I would like to include that as my theme, and explore these topics, and style music in that way that would express it. And I think we've done a great job. So for anyone who doesn't know, it was just two of us who produced the entire album, and I wrote most of the song except for two from the album. And you produced everything. And wrote all the stuff, and we just banged it out. It was like 2.5 months that we finished it. And and I think we had an amazing experience with that one. It was almost like also the first baby.
Yes.
That we made musically.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, you were pregnant when you recorded all
I was
the
literally
vocals.
recording when I was pregnant. Yeah.
Relatively early stages of the pregnancy, but as you say, it was almost like the first step on the way. And I mean, for context, like you originally came up with the concept of Yarimā in 2019, I think, when we were still in London.
Yeah, when we still live in London. Yeah, I remember you were actually recording Brain Helmet
Cool.
One of the sessions, because we set up this tiny homemade
studio in our apartment.
Yeah.
And I would have bands there.
Super hot because we couldn't open the windows because it was so loud by the main road.
On the street, yeah. So we plugged the windows. Yeah, we had to make really dense foam plugs, and they were very effective, but they made the place so hot and stuffy. It was crazy.
Yeah, especially in summer that was just unbearable sometimes.
It was,
but that was the first experience. And I remember you were recording Brain Helmet there because you were just studying and they were staying for overnight. Well, it was very late at night. I don't even remember if they stayed overnight. We had like a little couch there, and I remember being in the other room, and at that time again, we did have day jobs, and I had just like standard job in the city, and I decided to use the weekends to start writing something. And I still have this recording on my phone because I didn't have any setup for interface on the laptop where I could record it. I was literally just playing on a digital piano where you can just record in the piano and then transfer it as a MIDI to the computer later. And I wrote "We Are Here," which was the first single for Yarimā. It actually came, funnily enough, that's a little Easter egg for any listeners of Yarimā who are enjoying this podcast, that I wrote it off the back of finishing the entire Game of Thrones in 2.5 weeks.
That's true. We had you had a massive binge because the last season was coming out. And I'd watched it all. So you binged the entire thing.
You were like, we have to watch the last season. I was like, I have no idea what happened to the other ones. Well,
get to it.
Time there.
Bit of an anticlimax in the end of the last season, but it was quite a ride binging the whole show. So there you go. That was clearly the inspiration, or it played into it.
Yeah. So it definitely inspired me to write and to create this kind of more medieval-ish sound, because the original track, it was very stripped back. It was actually quite new agey. And again,
if anybody doesn't know, it wasn't metal at the start.
It didn't have any guitars or anything. I literally just programmed everything. Like there was a harp and some like flutes and some whatever. And it was like very nice music to listen to relax, And then I remember it was a couple of months down the line, and we had this conversation, and you were telling me how, I think we can actually make it sound amazing if we add some guitars and metal guitars and drums.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's give it a go. And I think that was the sound of Yarimā created pretty much. And then we were playing with vocals and layering it in various different ways. And that was quite a creative process, And then we released that track initially. And I even made a video for it with the help of my good friend who's a photographer. Margarita, hi, if you're listening. Thank you so much. Yes. So I, as I mentioned, I was always quite lucky with people I met along the way. So it was a very interesting experience. I've never had any video footage done before for any of my projects like that. And I quite enjoyed it. And it's actually still out there on YouTube. So if anyone wants to check out, it's on LovAnaverse channel. And
and that was really just a photo shoot, and it kind of almost wasn't planned to turn into a video. It was just like, well, we're here, we might as well.
We are here.
Yeah, we are.
Need to
might as well record some video
for the song.
clips. And it worked.
And
cool.
and then I just started to write some drafts after that, but it was almost like I didn't really know what I want to do with that project, and I just really enjoyed the aesthetic and the sound, but then it all just played in very well in the context of LovAnaverse, and then it almost breathing new life into that project, because it all started to make sense, and I had an aim to go for, and write the backstory and develop the look further. So by the time we released second single, which was Follow Me, which we released whilst trying to again transition from just living in London, working day jobs and doing a bit of creative jobs on the side, to fully doing creative jobs and setting up a business. And so that would, for me, always remain this transitional time. And, in a way, it's actually quite interesting, because subconsciously, Will You Follow Me is kind of almost the dream asking you, like, will you follow me?
Yeah.
And it's for you to decide, really. There's no one's going to tell you what you should do, really, with it. And so we decided to follow it after that. And, studied music marketing, and it was quite intense time, I think, where we really went on full on for it, and then into the first album. And that was an amazing experience. And I definitely think that wouldn't have happened without you. Like I literally probably wouldn't have had any full albums out. It probably would have been some singles here and there, but it's almost helped to consolidate what needed to be there for it to take shape, or start to take shape. And then obviously LovAnaverse followed after that with an album as well, and that helped it make things very real. So before it was just, you have an idea and you do this and that, publish some pretty pictures or graphics and things like that. But what are we doing here, really? And this whole campaign with the Strings of Fate made it so real, and something that none of us have done before. And we've learned so much from that experience, and we gained so many skills again with all of the things that we had to do just between two of us.
Yep.
And so I can definitely say that I'm infinitely grateful for that experience, and for anyone really who entrusted us with supporting our business through projects like Yarimā. And there is quite a following there on Instagram and on Facebook. And I remember, obviously, before having our baby boy, I was a lot more active and communicating with people, and I've met some wonderful people from pretty much all over the world. And it's just amazing to see for yourself how music can connect you with people who feel it in the same way. It's like when I imagine them listening to what we produce, and they, you don't have to really talk to them, because it's almost they had a glimpse into your soul through your music.
Yeah.
And they liked it. If they liked it and they want to hear more, and they reach out to you to say that they really appreciated it and they liked it, and that's an amazing feeling, because you feel like you made a difference for someone.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember having this message on Facebook from I actually don't remember his name, unfortunately, but it was about Follow Me, because it's actually the song about that I wrote inspired by war songs, and it's actually about war, obviously in the context of a Violet, but
like follow me into battle type thing.
Yeah.
Yarimá's a warrior.
It's all about
right?
the context. And he said that this song really resonates with him so much, because he was involved in some military operation, and the feelings that he felt whilst he was there were so well expressed in that song that he hadn't found anything quite like it before. And that moment I realized that, wow, at least, I know now I made a difference, at least for that person, with my music. And I think for an artist, this is so vital to have this affirmation back at you, because, you can't create just art that's exists in a vacuum. Like, who's this for? If you're, I really truly believe that you're a vessel for, channeling messages that can come through you, or music, or, anything that's involved with what we're talking about music in this context. So what you put out there is really important, but it's not really yours. And you never should take it that, well, it's all mine. Like, I've done it, I'm so amazing and stuff. I really believe that if you put out something out there, then it's for someone else who really needed it, and it's almost like the way you can help someone with your craft, in the same way how you come, or used to come, I suppose, to a certain person for your needs. So for example, you go to a farmer to get meat and milk or whatever, you go to a shoemaker to get your shoes done, and so they provide this for you. And so I think an artist makes that for your emotional state, and that's why some things resonate with you, some things don't. And it's a beautiful connection and process, I think, because I might not even know people who have checked out my music or listened to my music, but in a way, we're forever connected through that. So
that's so awesome. It's nourishment for the soul, right?
Yeah, it is.
You put it so well. And I think you're right. Yarimā did actually resonate with. It was really wonderful to see. As you said, that was a very new experience for both of us. Especially the Strings of Fate, like, everything came so naturally. Like, we had those first couple of singles, as you said. We started, after we got into this place, we started making a new one, and we made Here They Come. And then we put that into an EP. And as you said, we were studying music marketing, so we needed something to sell. We had the EP. But then we were like, if we really want to have something, though, we need an album. So we were like, okay, let's just put our heads down and, like, make an album. We'll just make that our primary focus. And it was a cool process. Like, it happened so naturally and so easily. Like you said about Flavorners, and that album was released later that year. But that album took years to make. That was my band that I was in for years and years, like the whole time before we even met. And it was a kind of frustrated process in a way. But Strings of Fate and Yarimā was just kind of opposite. Like, it just happened. We were just really flowing with it. And you really drove it in terms of, like, you wrote the songs pretty much. And I remember we would literally be across the hall from each other. Like we are like right now. Which is kind of funny. But, you'd be there on the piano and just writing the melody and the harmony, basically the essence of a song. And then was just giving those to me. And then I'm just listening to it. I'm like, okay, cool. Start arranging it, start thinking of some drums and some guitars. And you basically did your thing, gave it to me. I did my thing. And that was pretty much it. And then we just listened to it. Like, what do we think? Oh, maybe tweak this, maybe tweak that. Cool, that one's good. Move on to the next one. And it was so smooth. And I think that, that album, from everything we've done so far, is by far performed the best, because I think it really connected with people. I think partly because of the process being like that, but also because your authenticity and everything that you're putting across here, like, that really came through with Yarimā. And I remember, again, for me, trying to think about everything or whatever, or overthink it or whatever, it was always complicated. How do we have characters and also like be authentic, you know?
Yeah.
And I always struggled with it. But for you, I think you just struck a chord. And even though you were playing a character, as it were, Yarimā, you know, it was all this direct to fan marketing. It was largely through the email list and things like that. And I think that you were able to just like really come across to these people in a way that, as you say, though, you know, it really resonated with them, and they would write to you, you know, respond to emails or send you messages that telling you how the music impacted them or helped them. And yeah, that was an amazing experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it was very insightful. And well, as you say, I think it's very important to remain authentic. And, you know, obviously, I think I can speak for most of the artists. It would be really great if you can make a good living with your art and what you do. And, you know, it is a long way there for some. For some, it happens quicker, obviously. But I think the majority is, you know, it's a long and winding road. But you should never put money as a priority in that. And because, again, I think it's kind of soul crushing in a way. I suppose you can try and do that for some time, but it shouldn't become your default. And it's important to always come back to what you're actually passionate about and what you enjoy doing. And so with Yarimā, it was a pure joy, really, to write all those songs, and they all came very naturally. And I remember literally writing one a day. At least I think it was a couple of days, but I wrote a few.
Yeah.
And then we'd just like see if we liked it, and we literally kept all of them. So
pretty much, yeah. I remember thinking that we'll keep writing and we'll see, but everything just worked.
Yeah.
It was really seamless.
And with all the lyrics as well, they came quite naturally through, because I'm very into, you know, philosophy of life and higher purpose and, you know, dignity and everything that can be connected to this, you know, archetype of a warrior or a monk. I don't know. Someone who's dedicated to the cause for a greater good for others. And so it all came very naturally. And I do believe in those things regardless, whether it's in Yarimā context or not. And I do think that, especially for the collective and for having fulfillment in your life in deeper meaning, this is what, you know, people really need to strive for, because it's not really about you. You can never be happy if all your focus is on yourself. So
yeah, it's fantastic. And I think that's that thing of, as you say, it's like you can write it all in story and metaphor, but there's always something deeper there. And
universal topics, they are called universal for a reason. And I may not sing about, you know, heartbreaks or you know, troubled relationship or some things like that.
Well,
but I do feel like there's
not specifically in the context of your own life.
No, exactly. Yeah. It was a bit of like, it was such a large character, and I felt like it would be not fitting.
Yeah.
And I can reserve stuff like that that's more out of this world for my personal projects. So yeah,
for sure. And obviously, like, as you say, for Yarimā fans and stuff that listen to it, like, they can follow the trajectory. We recorded the album, we released it, we pushed it. You were super awesome connecting with the fans, and that was a top priority.
It was all authentic. I was writing all the emails, and I was messaging everyone. So it was not like robots or anything.
But yeah, so you really pushed that for a while, and then obviously lots of people more recently have been like, you know, where did Yarimā go? He's not posting so much, and like not sending these emails and blah blah blah. And yeah, obviously, if you've been listening, you know, you can line up the timeline and realize that at some point there, towards the end of the year, obviously had a baby and became a mom, and that shifted things quite a lot. And obviously, as you say, that kind of has put Yarimā somewhat in this position that you kind of spoke about at the beginning of speaking about Yarimā, where, you know, it's Yarima's still existing, doing her thing. And we have some Yarimā material and things that we've played around with, and full intentions to play around with more. And we really appreciate the support of people there, right? But obviously things have shifted, and your priority has not been on the project so much since this particularly large life event.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been very transformative, and I don't think you're completely ready for it, even when you think you're ready. It's so much larger than anything you would have thought, that you just have to give in, and you know, everything else is just needs to wait, because that becomes an important, well, essential thing, really, and your main priority. So yeah, and the rest will still be there when I get back to it, so that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was, for sure, it changes things, like, in general. And I mean, as you say, it's kind of been constant learning this whole time. But we've definitely had some big shifts, and that was a particularly big shift that puts things in perspective, because we both have always been, like, super into music, super passionate about that. Our business, which we were clearly really focused on, but after having a baby, and really having a family there now, it's like, as you say, becomes by far the most important thing. And it kind of shifts the perspective of everything, because everything else is still important, you know, but, you know, this is the core of life. And then everything else almost becomes extra, you know. And I think that actually that has helped us a lot, right? To have that sense of perspective.
I think it made us, well, obviously we both went from being each our own person into parents as a team. So we really need to learn, well, we have learned how to be more efficient, and both with our time and with each other.
Yeah.
And it's definitely an amazing experience, and like I don't know, it cannot be compared to anything else, really. And it does give you clarity, because you know what's really important, and what, you know, is just not really worth your time and energy, and especially worry. So this whole thing of that you need to just worry less, that's what you learn, and what I constantly still keep on learning through motherhood, because you know, it's been but now almost 1.5 years, but I just know now that I would have told my old self back then, like 1.5 years ago, that I should just worry a lot less. Because it's all fine. You don't have to, you know, kind of wear yourself out with worry.
Exactly. It's valuable
it
time and energy.
Anything. Yeah. It never changes anything. Only it takes away from you. So.
Yeah, and I think it kind of goes into this topic in general about you know, taking risks, like you said, is kind of part of being an artist or an entrepreneur and whatnot. It's all about risk taking, and it's like it can seem so scary to make that jump, to do whatever it is. Like our mind and our psyche it can do crazy things. Like it can literally feel as if, you know, we're jumping into some fiery pit of doom, you know. But in general, it's not. It tends to be okay, you know, and that's what we've learned is that there's sometimes where things have got stressful, and it's like, how are we gonna survive? How are we gonna like make money? How are we gonna manage all of these things? And we just do. And as you say, that you just learn that there's no point wasting all that time and energy worrying about it. You're better off using that time and energy productively, so you can just keep doing better. Yeah, for sure. It's been a big lesson, definitely.
Yeah, and I feel like the things that you believe in define your day-to-day life a lot. So if you're worried and you're in that place where you feel lack of things and lack of this and that, and it's only going to multiply. And the same is true for the other way around. The more fulfilled you feel on a daily basis, the more it's going to multiply.
Yeah.
So I feel like, again, being an artist, I've definitely been through the stages where you try and harness drama for the sake of drama, just to justify your creativity, because like, oh, we've learned that nothing like true art can only be made from suffering, things like that.
Yeah.
And like all those artists who died being so poor and
starving artists and romanticism.
Their desperation made them amazing and stuff like that. So I feel like, well, that's great. I mean, I can't really say I'm happy for them even, because they've made all these pieces of art or amazing music that we enjoy now, like a century or a couple of centuries after they've gone.
Mm-hmm.
And they had nothing for it.
Yeah.
And they don't get any royalties for it or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I think our current landscape is actually allowing you a lot more to enjoy your way as an artist.
Mm.
And I think that's what you need to focus on. Is if you decided to be an artist, then you should never expect that it's all just going to be unicorns and rainbows, and that all you're going to do is just spend your days, tinkering the instruments or whatever, trying to push through some writing blockage. It's like tip of the iceberg what you actually do with your art. That's why you need to learn to be super efficient with your time. It's like, you have this time slot where it's dedicated time for your music writing.
Yeah.
And you just do it in that time, whatever it is, whatever the idea comes.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, because you're here for the process and not for the outcome. And you just build it as a muscle, and then you do other things that you have to do to function and to maintain your life and your connections and things like that. And that's also part of life. So you don't have to lock away yourself and work on this amazing masterpiece for 20 years. Nobody's going to care about it, because your main treasure really now is in the people who care about you and who you care about.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like when you focus is outside, then whatever you do is it has more meaning. And I do feel like it's gonna ease the load, mental load, as well as an artist, and this feeling of not being there where you wanted to be or where you imagined yourself to be. It's going to make it so much easier, because you can stay more detached while still continuing doing what you love. And that was definitely one of the very big lessons. And clarity is a very important thing to have and to master as an artist. Clarity of what you're doing, when you're doing, and why you're doing it, who you're doing it for, who you're doing it with. So these questions need to be answered, and then there's nothing left to be struggling about after that. And I do feel like that's already shifting. I think we're already moving into this place where more healthy life, more healthy mental state, and just being balanced throughout your I don't even know how to say it anyway. So
Yeah.
like being
Throughout
just
all aspects,
throughout
yeah,
all your
aspects of
areas
life.
of your life, being just
Mhm.
balanced is a lot more valued now than just being this amazing tortured artist that
Mhm.
everyone just finds so mysterious and attractive and things like that. So yeah, it usually can be left for TV series or movies and stuff. You can enjoy that and even project yourself if you'd like. But
Yeah.
real healthy life is far from that. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. As you know, we talk about that, and I think it's another kind of factor in a way of LovAnaverse to almost be deliberately like that, because I think a lot of us fall into that trap when we're younger, and I know for sure I definitely romanticized being a tortured artist and all of that. Like you can look at 27 Club people or these tragic idols. It's all so romantic, and wonderful, and but it ultimately is a rather ego-led endeavor to aspire to be like that, and ultimately, especially just more and more as you mature, like I just echo what you say there, which is the real aspiration is like make great art or be great at whatever you want to be, but like if the ultimate aspiration is to really be able to do it all, to be balanced in those aspects of life, and to be able to maintain to be healthy in your person and your relationships and all of these things, and also be accomplished in your career. That's truly aspirational for me. And I really admire people that are able to achieve that, because it's actually a lot more difficult than just
it is, yeah.
It's kind of, in a way, it's almost a bit easy to kind of flake and like be like, oh, I'm good at this, so I don't have to try everything else. So it's kind of the ultimate aspiration, I think. And as you say, I think it's right that is given as more of a role model to aspire to.
Yeah.
So I love speaking about all the more philosophical things. Like you're putting everything across so well. It's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
I maybe just to kind of get it into a little bit more of a question about you and your music again. I'm interested in. I think that you have a lot of great skills, but perhaps one of the strongest skills that I would say you have is as a songwriter. And you write really great songs, really great melodic songs typically, and you have a real knack, I think, for creating just not just like pop for the sake of pop, I suppose, but nicely like melodic songs that that have that kind of flow to them, and it's always seemed to come rather natural to you. I'm interested in what your process is as a songwriter, and also how that might vary over different projects.
Yeah, I actually remember having that conversation with you like around 3 years ago. And I was trying to write something more edgy because you were always listening to so much prog, and I was like, well, I kind of like it, but I don't know if I'm really able to mimic that, because that's the part of being curiosity and feeding your, I suppose, inner child with that is playing different things, not being restricted to a certain genre. And so I was trying to play around with it, and it always comes up with this melodic poppy things.
Yeah.
And I give up. Like, it's literally just what I do. And then I came to you and I was like, I tried to write this and that, but it always comes out so just like the standard pop melody. And you said that, I actually really envy you, because I really tried to simplify things and actually make a melody. And I always end up with this prog parts where it just goes for 8 minutes and I can't do anything else. And I'm like, grass is greener on the other side.
There you go.
But I suppose that's why it worked pretty well for us to work together on Yarimā, because I just brought melodic bit, and you could just make the rest of the arrangement. But yeah, I don't actually know what it is. I've always been into. I always liked pop music, but it was mostly Western influenced music, or European even more, I would say. Especially, I think my parents were quite a big influence on me, and especially my dad, because I remember he had quite a few vinyls that were always, very fascinating. He had. I remember sometimes on Sundays he would turn on Aha, for example. We had that vinyl, and so it was. I think it was just slowly ingraining in my brain, and I always liked Eurovision and things like that. So there was definitely like you can never underestimate what influences you as a child that you take into your adulthood, especially as a creative. So I think in that instance that was inevitable.
Yeah.
Then also in my teenage years, I was really into pop punk and pop rock and things that were kind of more edgy, but still very commercially successful and on the radio and TV. And I always liked that type of music. I don't know what was it about it. How usually in we've watched Finn McKenzie's videos, like especially in a lot of alternative and metal communities, you have this gatekeeping aspect where you became too mainstream. We don't like so like bye, you're not true anymore.
Yeah.
And I do get it, because alternative means alternative is not mainstream. So, but then I always like this idea of being really successful as a musician by releasing that music that resonate with people like me, for example. So obviously I was projecting myself a lot on my heroes, as I suppose a lot of people in that age would do. And yeah, so that was very helpful, because when I started writing my songs, I started writing in English pretty much straight away when I was 14. And again, because most of the music I was listening to was in English. And yeah, it just naturally happened. So after I started writing it, they started to come out melodic straight away. So it was just a question of dressing them up or down, kind of with instruments. And I definitely can say that for a long time, I wasn't really happy with the way I was writing songs. I always felt like they need to be more complicated and more mature in that way, I think. But I had, multiple occasions of the feedback saying how my songs get stuck in the head, like pretty much straight away after you heard it once and you remember the melody. So I, came to terms with it and learned how to appreciate the songwriting, and definitely, yeah, it's been wonderful to be able to just express myself in that way. And I feel like I would like to experiment more with. I don't really like the word commercial, but I guess you can say a commercial pop, or more pop rock, or things like that. So, because as you say, there is this natural knack of feeling for how melody flows, maybe writing a lyrical hook that is also grabbing attention. So yeah, who knows?
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure that you will. There's always experimentation going on, but
yeah,
I think that there is a line there, because, as you say, it comes very natural to you, this style. And I would say, I can't speak for them all, but pop punk bands or ones like that you mentioned that are very commercially successful, I think that they're just doing what's authentic to them as well, And I think that there's a line where it becomes cynical, and it becomes more like, I'm not really doing what's authentic to me. I'm just trying to make music that's commercial.
Yeah.
That's like another step of the line. And I think there are people like that. In fact, probably most of the pop songs on the charts are written by, or the ones that are written by like 13 writers.
Yeah.
Who is it authentic to exactly? You know, how could it be? So
it's authentic to the algorithm.
Yeah. And it works. I guess it clicks buttons in people, and as you say, it's an algorithmic approach. And I think that's different. That's a different ball game. And again, not necessarily any shade on it either, because that's a science that people do well in.
There's absolutely a place for it. So
So for sure. But there is a line between, like, when you say that you'd like to potentially experiment with a more kind of commercial pop sound, it's because you could do that authentically well, I think, rather than wanting to become one of these sort of professional team songwriters that's making music in an algorithmic way.
Yeah, I do feel like, it would be really interesting to see what process are they going through, because I do feel like when you get to that level of music production, I think they probably just intuitively know these things already. As I said, like with melody writing, for example, it comes just because I've been listening to loads and loads and loads of pop music when I was growing up. So imagine someone who's been immersed into that for many years. And I do feel like your subconscious just kind of just gives, this, it's almost like a cooking recipe. They just like come together for chef masterclass, and they just like cook a song together.
Yeah.
And each one of them just drops something in the pot, and then it just like woof, and becomes an amazing massive hit. So I definitely would be I definitely would like to think that it's not just purely for the gain, or for, they had an order from a massive label for this particular singer or whatever to make the song get back like all the investment that they've done in it, like tenfolds, 100-folds, rather than it's almost like experimenting laboratory kind of, where obviously they know what they're capable of, and that pretty much every song that they produce has this star quality kind of to it. But I definitely like to think that there is creativity involved in that, and
I certainly like that take and that way of thinking about it. I suppose it goes into the fact that I mentioned cynicism, and the fact that people may be cynical about this, and potentially people actually doing this may be cynical about it. But I like the fact that you've essentially taken an optimistic view on it, and it's a preferential way, I think, to view it. And I think and like to hope that probably is actually the way it is for most people. Cool.
Well, because there still needs to be, it needs to resonate with people enough so they want to listen to it. So it can't be just, cynically calculated, because it doesn't have any energy charge in that way. I mean, again, you can project what you'd like to do, and again, when there's such a high level of production, the song is very anticipated, and you have so many tools and channels to put it through, to promote it, to make an amazing video for it. So it's just whole other level of support and being a professional. So I feel like you would have to witness it for yourself to really make a judgment. And I honestly can say that I would really love to witness that someday, even like as a workshop or whatever. I think that would be very interesting. So
nice. Yeah. I agree. We'll have to find one.
Yeah. Maybe next time we're visiting Sweden, because obviously they're ahead of the entire world in that field.
Department.
So yeah,
absolutely.
Actually, before moving to UK, I was playing with the idea to actually move to Sweden to study pop production. It was one of the things, but but then I was like, not really sure, because obviously then you say, language barrier, and Scandinavia is so expensive as well. So
Yeah.
and
It's awesome. I love Sweden. I mean, I don't know if we explicitly mentioned it, but it was part of our jump was we tried, like, we were very briefly in Sweden.
Yeah.
Just for a summer. And it was really cool because we were in like a log cabin in Stockholm Archipelago.
Yeah, in Archipelago, yeah.
It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. And I remember when you were talking about Follow Me, because I remember actually finishing the production of that song in that log cabin.
In the cabin, yeah.
And we released it there. Yeah.
Yeah, that was quite a difference, because you have this whole, heavy metal guitars and things, and this whole topic on like, creatures who come to war, and like you have to fight them.
Yeah.
And then you just like go, okay, I'm just gonna go for a nice walk in the pine woods where
by the lake.
The sun shines on you, the birds are singing, and you go to this crystal clear water.
Yeah.
So that was
true.
very rejuvenating.
Yeah.
And
No, it was absolutely wonderful. And again, we just kind of went from one extreme to the other, being locked down in a like small apartment in London, to being like, let's go to the opposite extreme.
Yeah.
And in the end, we ended up sort of compromising somewhere, and we came back to the UK. Obviously, it's, we were settled here to some degree, but, in the north and yeah, kind of, it's a nice place in between, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it worked for us, and it served as our base, as a ground, to rise from, really. And I feel like it was a bit too detached in Sweden, because we just had like a couple of suitcases and like laptops and stuff.
Yes.
And that was pretty much it. So it was very minimalistic.
I had one guitar. And do you remember my guitar case? Like, I had the guitar in it. It was the 7-string, and my guitar case was completely packed full of underwear that I rolled. All of my underwear, all my socks and my pants were rolled up and tucked into the guitar. So I could maximize the space.
Yeah.
And I had the laptop, and
that
I
was a great experience.
picked up some monitors off like a random dude on, I don't know, Facebook Marketplace or something, and managed to mix the song with that. And I remember thinking, like, I hope this mix is actually good, because like I have no idea what the environment of this cabin is like and all sorts. But we managed, and as you say, it was a cool experience.
Yeah, it was it was a great jump.
I want to just like quickly touch then on we've spoken a lot about music, and obviously music is such a big thing, and all of these topics that go into it. I know you have a lot of interests, but perhaps you could share maybe like what some of them are, what other things you're interested in, what other things make you tick, things that you think about, and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, for a long time now, I've been really into yoga and spirituality and meditation, that aspect of things, and that definitely stayed with me throughout my 20s and into my 30s now, and I'm very passionate about it. So again, I've actually started a new project that's coming along together, and probably soon I'm gonna make an announcement about it. But yeah, it's going to involve immersive stories, which are not exactly like meditations, but they can help you to relax and gain more perspective, kind of what you would expect from meditation, to help you focus more. And it's going to also involve fantasy music, but just instrumental one. And it's all gonna come out together. It's gonna be called Inside a Fairy Tale, because again, one of the things that I'm really into is the whole fairy tale aesthetic, but in this more darker way, kind of. And I've been always into visuals and studied fashion and fashion symbology as well, which is a whole other topic as well. But I think it's very important, again, as an artist, to have a vision, not only for what you want to do musically, but also how you want to express yourself visually, because it just gives you such a boost of confidence, and it helps your listeners to find more value in what you do, because if it's presented attractively, if it has a very clear idea and a message and visuals, I guess, then it becomes like a full package, and
it's part of the art. Ultimately,
it becomes an experience. And I think, again, as an artist, you need to provide experience rather than just separate random things that people would have to spend time making sense of. So we live in an era where everyone's just competing for each other's time, and sometimes you can even go by days without replying to even your close friends, because you just literally can't find the time or energy when you want to do that, because you have this and this and that, and you need to tend to all those other things, and you're constantly bombarded with new information and more information, and you have this whole fear of missing out because you want to check this out and that out, and so not to spread yourself short. So I think it's actually being respectful to your listener. You need to think through how most effectively to present the art that you do, so that they don't have to be puzzled on what is this really like. Because, as again, Lee McHenry likes to say, you confuse, you lose.
Yeah.
And I do really believe that. So yeah. In fact, sometimes I even I come to check out the project that I really liked aesthetics of in the first place. So I've been, for example, I'm just scrolling through the feed, and then I advertise some artist, and I really don't have time to go to Spotify right now and to listen to their music, or even turn on the sound on the ad or whatever.
Yeah.
But I save it because I liked the look of it, and I can see that everything is being thought through, and the visuals and fonts and colors and everything are really appealing to me. So I'm gonna get back to it later. I actually do. I actually do get back later and check out things, and I can't really say that it's always good.
Of course.
Sometimes it's actually underwhelming, and I'm not really too sure, but okay, that's good to know. But sometimes you do find things that match perfectly visuals with what they present musically, and then these ones I press save, press play, and they stay in my playlist. So that's really important. So yeah.
I mean, so visual art really is is ultimately a big interest of yours, right? And I think also a big ability of yours, because you, as you demonstrate here, you clearly think about that a lot. You notice this about things a lot. We talk about it a lot, and I mean, you've, at least until this point of you speaking, you practically yourself done all the visuals on Love Anarchy, LovAnaverse. And I think, as you said, you said about fonts and styles, and you said about fashion. There's all these different things to it that ultimately play into the one kind of main thing of having this interest in visuals. Because you didn't mention, I don't think, but you also have been pretty into photography and stuff from quite a young age.
That's true.
Yeah, that's a pretty good. Yeah. It's a big skill of yours. I would say that you're a very good photographer.
Oh, thank you. It's always really difficult to judge for yourself, because you you go down that rabbit hole of like, oh, my camera is not good enough, and you know, like seeing other photographers like, oh wow, like it's really creative, and I'm like really stiff with what I do. But yeah, ultimately it was a good enough skill, and again, I started off just enjoying having a camera and offering to take, you know, photos of friends, and then would take them to the gigs where other bands were playing as well, or I would be playing too. And so it kind of naturally became one of the things that I enjoy doing. And again, as Juana mentioned on one of the early episodes from Art Night, that once you become a creative like that, like you find it easier to express yourself in other different fields.
Yeah.
So like for her, she does art also, as well as making music and writing songs. And I do agree, because I think you can just move from one thing to the other if you have the same mentality about your creativity. Is that just something you enjoy in the moment? And you can just play around, and who knows, you might find that you're really into cooking, for example.
Or to be creative, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And you can find that you're really into like sewing and creating amazing costumes. The thing is that you would never know that you're into it unless you try. So I think one of the greatest advances for kids and growing up is to just try things. And when you feel that spark, that you feel like you can do that all night without sleeping, and you know you don't want to do anything else, then that probably shows that this is something you will probably can enjoy for the rest of your life, and that you need to follow that. So
I think it kind of it loops back into this point again where we started, which is, you know, just to play and if you can get out of your head and into that flow state, you know, and you can play around and experiment and try different things, and then find the things that really make you go into that, you know, then that's a direction for life, right?
That's actually quite interesting, because that very naturally, I think, aligns as a reference to this cartoon animated film that we've seen recently called Soul. And
what it was about, essentially.
Yeah, we can definitely recommend that to anyone who hadn't seen it. But I really liked that presentation that they had, that you go in when you're in that zone, you just being transported to this realm where you're not in the physical world anymore. And I really liked that they didn't just show musicians there or artists. There were loads of different people doing whatever they were doing. And which means that it's accessible to anyone. And you just all you need to do is to really do what you love and you're passionate about, and that's just going to get you there. So
it's such a good note. You know, I'm just conscious now of the fact that we could talk. We're gonna have to wrap up, because we could talk about this, you know, all day. And luckily, we live together and we can. Just everybody else won't be able to hear it. But I think that we have managed to capture some really wonderful things here. Is there anything else in particular that you want to make sure that we get in there before we wrap
up? No, as you say, I think we've covered a lot, and I do hope that this episode is going to be insightful for some, and hope you enjoy.
And such a pleasure to speak to you like this and finally have you on the podcast, because
absolutely, the pleasure is mine.
Wonderful. Okay,
it's been wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I'll see you in a minute.
I'll see you in a minute.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Creating a Universe. Special thanks to Maria for joining me. It was such a pleasure to finally get to record this one. You can check out Maria's website at mariarogers.co.uk or find her on Instagram at mariarogersmusic. Of course, you can find Yarimā at lovanaverse.com/Yarimā and on socials at la.Yarimā. Links will be in the show notes. That's all for this one. I'll see you next time.